Meanwhile, I do feel a little better when I hear from Kyrie. Because Kyrie just can't help himself. You win one stinking game. The first game you've won against the Celtics in years. You win one stinking game, and you go out and step in it again. Now, in fairness to Kyrie, this wasn't in the aftermath on Friday night. This was yesterday. Kyrie discussed his time in Boston, and, here's what he said.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back on it, getting traded here, this wasn't one of my options. It wasn't like number one on my list. Aww. So when the trade opportunity got approached to me, instead of going back and appreciating the Celtics history, I just came in with an open mind and just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to go with the flow into this. But I think that was the wrong approach, just being young. But now that I'm a little older, hindsight looking back on it, I definitely would have taken the time to get to know people within the community, talk to some of the champions that have come before me, actually extend myself to them instead of the other way around, expecting them to be there for me and give me advice. Because they've been through it. They have championship pedigree here. They've shown it for years. They're one of the most winningest franchise in all of sports. So you have to show your respects here. And I think that's what I struggled with initially, was figuring out how I'm going to be a great player here while winning championships, while also leading a team and selflessly joining the Celtics organization or the cult that they have here. And that's what they expect you to do as a player. They expect you to seamlessly buy into the Celtics pride, buy into everything Celtics, and if you don't, then you'll be outed. And I'm one of the people that's on the outs. I'm perfectly fine with that. You know what I mean? I did it to myself. They don't welcome me in with warm embrace, even though I know a lot of people in the organization, and my friends still here, some of them. But, yeah, it was just a doing to myself, and that's what I was talking about in terms of accepting the choices. But looking back on it, definitely would have showed my respect and had more of a counsel around me from some of the Boston Celtics that came before me to explain what the pressure is like.
Okay, two things. Number one, if you're watching on twitch.tv/BostonWEEI, we were getting some of the Celtics cult there. I couldn't tell if they were booing me or booing Kyrie. I couldn't quite tell.
You didn't get that sign language that he was doing?
I couldn't quite tell.
Was that Bob Cousy, by the way?
So I was going to say, that looked like Jerry from Big Brother, if anybody gets that reference, but that's who that looked like.
He walked over and he was giving a thumbs down and pointing to you.
He was pointing at me with his cane. He was pointing at me angrily with his cane.
Shaking his cane.
Yes. He's shaking his cane.
He pointed to his shirt to say thumbs up Celtics, but then he had to reiterate and point at you with his cane and give thumbs down, and then he shrugged as if to say, can you blame me?
Yeah.
He gave you like the Jordan shrug.
Yeah, no, he did. So if you're watching on twitch.tv/BostonWEEI or on the YouTube feeds, we got the fan cam behind us. That was hostile interaction. Number two, Kyrie. They weren't his first choice. He could have handled it better. I mean, there was a little bit of self-awareness in there.
They weren't even a choice.
They weren't.
Is how he made it
They
sound.
weren't a choice. I just went along with it. I could have handled myself a little bit better. He also called the Celtics a cult. How do we feel about the whole comment there?
Kyrie is just he's such a weirdo. And that's not new, but just listening to that is the perfect example of why everything that he's been doing to win NBA fans and Mavericks fans back over is just such bullcrap. He presents something like he's trying to give a compliment. He's saying, I should have reached out to the Celtics champions who were here before me and, do your homework and blah, blah, blah. But then he's like, I never even really wanted to go there. It just was an opportunity that was there, so I went.
They wanted me. I didn't want them.
And if you do go there, it's pretty much a cult. So you have to indoctrinate yourself to the cult leader of Wick Grossbeck or whoever he thinks it is, Brad Stevens. Like, you have to fall into a cult. He's essentially saying you can't be an independent thinker or anything like that. Otherwise, you're on the outs. Otherwise, you're just completely disowned by the Celtics community. And he's like, that's my fault. But at the end, it's all this stuff in between the lines where he's basically like, I was, too independent for them. I wasn't going to be in the Celtics cult. I wasn't going to go and talk to Cousy. I wasn't going to look up the Celtics history. And it's like, okay, cool. And you won one game.
Yeah, so
let's see what you do when you come back to TD Garden tonight.
It makes me feel a little better that Kyrie sounds like he won his championship, like he finally won his one game. That makes me feel a little better, for being honest.
I thought he sounded like the most rattled man who ever lived talking about the Celtics. Like, he really did. He was just rambling on and on and on. He talks about how he had to selflessly, like, what, they didn't pay you $20 million a year when you were here. You had to be selfless and selflessly join the team. Like, any team in the NBA wouldn't be like, hey, you know, we want you to selflessly join this team that we just traded you to be on. And the other thing about it, when he says this wasn't even one of my options, you know how hollow that sounds, knowing that Brooklyn was one of his options, and he was a total pain in the ass jackass there too, and couldn't win there either. And it's like, all right, well, whether it was your choice or it wasn't your choice, whatever it was, you've managed to be a petulant a-hole the entire time and blow up everything that you got close to. And I think that that's just, you know, he can start off this whole thing by saying, yeah, you know, it was really on me. I didn't treat it very well. I was the one who could have been more mature and all that other stuff he said before the series started. And here we are, Game 5, and all that's gone, and he's back to, you know, saying the same stuff he always says about Boston.
Okay, I feel a little better about that. You can vote. You get nervous about the game tonight.